turn. We make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be. I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful best day ever. For those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening and my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dream, the best life that you can. And as I've said, I've been thinking with our guest today, I've been thinking about what life was like for me as a child. If I ever wanted to get together with my friends, we had to go to somebody's house. We didn't call each other on the phone. There were we could call each other, but it was a landline. There were so many different things that are different than they are today. And that's not saying that it's good or bad, but now we rely on the internet for doing research, for socialization. I mean, I do so many workshops via the internet that we learn and grow together, and entertainment. Sometimes we're lonely and we just turn on our Netflix or whatever it is, the internet. But we're adults. But children are growing up in the same way. It used to be, if I wanted to research it, I had to go to the library or grab the Encyclopedia Britannica. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I do. And so now everything is Google it, do whatever. Children are, my 2-year-old granddaughter can swipe right, left. She knows how to get onto YouTube. She knows how to do all these things, and she's 2.5. Children are not speaking early. They're later and later, and they're not learning how to interact. And I have a lot of grandchildren that I want to be the best Mimi for, and I want them to be able to communicate with me without me going, oh my gosh, in my time, and giving them a lecture. So I found out about a beautiful Christian woman named Shannon Perry, and she has a degree, she's a master's degree in education and counseling, and is certified to guide parents and especially in crisis or different, and she does a lot to help unite the youth. And so I'm excited because I've asked her to come on to let's talk about how we can connect with this Generation Z that is up and coming, so that we can continue having a wonderful relationship with our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Shannon Perry is here to do just that. Welcome, Shannon. You're good. You're so good. You're right on time. You showed up.
Thank you, Lillian. It's great to be with you. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, I am glad. This is a conversation that I've been wanting to have for a long time. And when I saw what you were doing in the world, I'm so thankful to what you do. But share a little bit about a background of what led you to this passion, and what was did you have a crisis in your life that kind of like pointed you in the direction that you are headed in today?
Absolutely. Well, I was a school teacher and a school counselor, actually. I did get my master's degree in education and counseling. And so I had about 1,200 kids that I was in charge of for my counseling days. And then I had also been a camp director for years. I've always just loved working with kids, maybe because I am one inside, but I just have always related to them. I felt like that was my calling in life. And I knew that at an early age, I was saved when I was 6 years old. And so from an early age, I knew the Lord had his hand on me to work with the next generation. I just didn't know what all he had in mind. So just start off by telling viewers, just when we think we've got it all figured out and we know what God's doing, sometimes he flips the script on us, but it's always better. And I had an amazing journey as a teacher and a counselor, but I was also started singing professionally when I was 18. And people would always ask when I would go to sing, do you ever speak? And I would say, oh, no, I'm not a speaker. I'm a singer. And so eventually I began speaking, and they liked it. They kept coming back. They kept inviting me back. And so a publicist in Nashville heard about me, met with me, and said, hey, if you'll write, I'll take you on. And I thought, well, it was nice to meet you, because I'm not a writer. I'm a singer. I'm a speaker. And so I began writing for these little websites like crosswalk.com and Focus on the Family. And then she said, well, what about writing a book? And I said, oh, no, I'm not an author. I'm a singer, speaker, writer. Well, now I have 5 books out that have hit #1 on Amazon and gotten readers' favorite awards. And so then she said, well, what about doing a radio show? And I said, oh, no, I'm not a radio show host. I'm a singer, speaker, writer, author. Well, I have a radio show right now called Got Teens that goes syndicated around the country. And then they said, well, what about doing a TV show? And Lillian, I said, I draw the line there. You got to have like the perfect hair, perfect makeup, all that stuff. I said, I'm a singer, speaker, writer, author, radio show host. And then I started hosting a TV show that went into over 100 million homes. And now, of course, we're doing a lot more things on YouTube and things like that. So I always say the next thing I'm going to say is I'm not a millionaire, and see what happens. And so when we say we're not, I think God loves to say, yeah, watch this. And so my passion for reaching this generation of kids comes from a long line of working with teens. But I would love to share about the In Her Shoes tour that we're doing right now for moms and teen daughters as we get into that, because that's really where my passion is and where this ignited. And I would love to share that journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure that we'll get to that as well, because, it's so important it's amazing how when you are open to God's plan, how it comes to you, even if you feel that you're not enough, God is enough. And I always say that God doesn't call the equipped, God equips the called. So, if we know these promises of God, if you know that God is always with you to prepare you for whatever is in store, it's a lot easier journey. And you're able to do all things because God is in us. So it's amazing. So good for you for answering the call and letting your yes be greater than your fear. So good for you.
Thank you.
Okay. So when it comes to youth today, as I mentioned at the beginning, children are growing up, especially in the last 3 years with COVID, didn't have any contact with anybody. There were masks being worn and people couldn't see, the children couldn't see and articulate. And we're talking younger. And now as they're getting older, I'm noticing more depression, more anxiety, more a harder time dealing with life as it is. I mean, no different than ours. Maybe they're facing different challenges. What are you hearing out there, and what's causing this disconnect with people and being focused on the internet?
Well, I will say that we have always faced challenges. So if you look back in history, if we go back to the Bible days, they were still killing kids and tossing them off cliffs. This is nothing different than what we have been seeing all throughout the Bible days. Children have always been targeted by the enemy, the innocent, I should say. And our kids, being younger teens, they're still the innocent generation, if you will, before they get to be adults. And the enemy has just, I believe, come along and still wreaks havoc in their life. But he's just we're just seeing a new way of it being exposed. So the Bible is full of times, and it doesn't talk a lot about teenagers, by the way, in case anybody looks back at that, but it does talk about some. who are very successful. We can look at some people, we can look at Joseph's life. We can go back to those times. But teen issues, I believe, are being seen more because of social media and because of the internet and because of technology in general. We're more aware than we ever have been. But also, due to social media and technology, we do have new problems being created because, for example, the human trafficking issue that we have, me living in Houston, I live in one of the biggest cities in America where human trafficking takes place. And these traffickers, as people would like, they would like for us to think that they're doing this in person and they're going to meet them places. And sometimes that does happen, but the majority of traffickers are it's taking place online, and they know how to target these kids who are showing that they're having problems at home, or if they're saying I had a bad day, or they're posing as, it's easy to pose as someone that we're really not, both teenagers and traffickers. It's easier for adults to pose as that. I always call it fake book, not Facebook. We love to put the best stuff out there, but what is really going out may not be happening, what's happening. And so it's the same as these people who are coming along and really stealing our kids, and they're stealing their identity, and they're stealing their innocence, if you will. And so we have a real problem with the targeting of innocence in today's world, and it's being stolen from them. And they're no longer, just like you said, allowed to be children. They're being forced to grow up quickly. And so one of the things that we've got to do as parents, as Christian mentors, as teachers, as coaches, as whoever is involved in these kids' lives, we've got to be the hands and feet of Jesus. That's just what we've got to do. Because whether it's through, and I'm not demonizing technology, we're using it right now. It can be used for some incredible things.
Totally agree.
But what I'm talking about is we've gotten these new issues. A lot of it is because our kids have access to the world in their back pockets. And so there are openings from the world in their back pocket. So as parents, as whoever's involved in these kids' lives, we've got to be hands-on. That means we've got to get into their world. And so many times we want to fight technology. We want to fight what's going on. Well, it's going on. It's happening. And I'm not saying we need to get in and do what they're doing. I'm not a member of TikTok. I don't ever plan to be on TikTok, and I'm not demonizing TikTok. However, there's been some good uses for TikTok. There's been some good uses for all of it. However, we've got to be aware that when our teenagers say that's my business, or you're trying to be in my business, whoever I'm talking to right now, parents, get in their business. We need to be in their business. I give you full permission to get in their business, because that's what love looks like today. Love has always looked like being in their business, but today it means get into their business technologically, because they live on their phones. We live on our phones. If the truth be told, we're as guilty as they are. At least I am. I'm on my phone a lot. And so there are a lot of parent apps out there. If they want to go to our website, inhershoestour.com, we're posting some of those right now. We're redoing our site as a resource for parents to say, okay, because technology changes so fast, we've got to be in their business, but we've got to be aware of what things are out there that can help us know where are our kids living on technology. What are our kids doing? And let me just say this for the record while we're talking about this. The world is not going to end if our kids don't have their phone from, say, 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock the next morning when they wake up. Our kids are having a lot of health problems because they're being sleep deprived, because they have the whole world in their back pocket. We're letting our kids go to sleep with their phones, and they're on their phones till 12, 2, 4 o'clock in the morning. I know that because I have teenagers in my life. And so one of the things that we've got to do as parents is not be afraid to say, hey, at whatever time, 9:30, whatever time your kids goes to bed, put your phone on the charger and leave it in a common place. And you're going to get some kickback for that if you're changing that, because they're not used to it. But the point is, our kids need their sleep. Our kids' sleep revitalizes. So, as you know, it revitalizes so much of our body, and we need it. And so, technology is one of the biggest things I talk about in my book, The Overlooked Generation for Parents. Of course, it changes so fast. Our chapters are probably outdated every day, but we've got to not be afraid to go and live where our kids are, and to get involved in their life technologically, and let them know, I trust you. I trust you. If you do, if you don't, there needs to be a conversation about that. But I trust you. I just don't trust what's out there in the big wide technology world. And for that reason, I'm going to be involved in your technology business, and I can take your phone at any moment and look at it because I love you. I care about you. And so they're not going to like that, by the way. And you're not there to be, you can be their best friend in 20 years. But right now, they need to know I love you so much. I'm not willing to chance anybody coming in through that phone and hurting you.
You know what? I love that. I love that. I love the fact that love has taken on what I remember. I remember my parents loving me that way. And they didn't have to worry about the internet. They didn't have to worry about all the other things that are happening today in today's world.
Right.
However, I do see like these limits. For example, I put limits to our children. When they were growing up, they could watch television if they were done with their work, and there were chores that they needed to do, and there were certain, like a schedule that they would follow. Today, I don't see, and this is not a judgment, this is just an observation, that that limitation of time on social media, on FaceTime, of television, playing games, like playing Nintendo was a treat, and that happened like after like on Friday night, and then of course as they got older we would increase it, but we monitored that aspect of it. But perhaps maybe we did too much monitoring because it doesn't exist at this point. And I'm not just saying my children, but the children in this world that are having children, our children that are having children. But what's happening is that I am seeing less and less engagement. Now, I'm not just talking about my children, my grandchildren. I'm talking about when I meet other children, they don't look at you in the eyes. They don't know how to shake your hand. They don't know how to do basic life skills. And when you're talking about we need to be in our kids' business, I don't know if the parents at this point have enough time to be in the kids' business. So what do you, let's because children will do what they're allowed to do.
Absolutely.
Let's talk to the parents now that have young children that have access. What do you say to them?
I think you make great points. I think that it takes energy and effort and time.
Consistency.
Yes, an absolute consistency to be a good parent. And that means that there may be days where it would be so much easier, and we've all done it,
I know.
to say, go watch the TV, instead of saying, hey, come over here and talk to me while I cook dinner. If that even happens anymore, usually people are speeding through Chick-fil-A. Now I'm going to address something right here too about time and being hands-on. I am all about kids being involved in extracurricular activities. I think it builds character. I think it builds interaction that they need. I think it does help build those communication skills. So I say, get your kids involved in some extracurricular activities. Don't let them sit at home and play video games all the time. Put limits on them. Put limits on their social media. You can do that. There's apps for that. And so that way, how much time they are spending on the phone. You can look there. There's and everybody I think knows how to do this. When you look at your cell phone, it's very easy to go into your settings and see how much time you've spent on the phone that week and what area you have spent it in. If you don't know how to do that, it's on YouTube. Just look it up. But you can find anything on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I think what's important is, yes, get your kids involved in some activities where they're forced to interact with other kids, with coaches, with other parents, with other adults, whether it's a sport, whether it's choir, whether it's youth activities at church. Hopefully they're involved in a good youth group, but where they're forced to interact with one another. Now, what happens is a lot of times, teen A over here is allowed to do whatever they want to do on their phone, but teen B over here is being told, no, you can't do that. So then the parents are feeling the pressure. Well, my goodness, they come home and tell me, that they get to do this. Well, look, that's nothing new either, as we know. I remember my mom asking me, if so-and-so jumped off a bridge, would you follow them? And, there's a couple I may have followed them. Who knows? But the point is, we've got to find the boldness that God has placed inside of us. He entrusted you and I with our kids. And that is a gift. And we have to protect and put boundaries and put beautiful boundaries around our children, because there is an enemy of our soul who wants to take out anything good of their life, who wants to destroy them before they even have a chance to get started. And he targets these young kids and he targets the innocent, because that way the breakup of the family happens. Our kids, our young adults. I just had this conversation with someone yesterday. Our young adults, they're not getting married anymore. They're just living together because that's what everybody's doing. And so we're considered weird as Christians if we say, I really can't live with you until we're married. But I say to these girls in our conferences for In Her Shoes, I say, you know what? You're a prize. You're a treasure. And if this guy is not willing to put out 110 on the red carpet for you, he is not good enough for you. And you need to say bye-bye to him. Because our girls are being told, hey, this person's doing this over here, so it's okay if you do this over here. And and the main thing I want to say, Lillian, is we're getting away from the truth of God's word and what it says, and we're basing everything on, when we're doing life that way, we're basing it on culture, and we're basing it on what other parents are doing, and we're basing it even on what maybe the church tells us to do, but maybe they didn't check out the Bible before they told us. Wherever we're getting our information, and the church is usually a good place to go, but check it out in the word. We have to go back to God's word and say, this is the foundation, this is the truth, and this is what we're going to parent on.
Very good. I hear the resolve in your voice, and I have the resolve as well, but I'm not raising my kids anymore. My baby is 33. So I'm all done, but I get to have fun with my grandchildren. When they come over, there's no television. And one time we had to open the armoire in our living room, and the kids went, "Oh, you have TV in the living room?" I'm like, yes, we do. Because we have fun together. But I make sure that I plan out all the time. If I had a full-time job plus had to plan out all the time, I understand what parents are going through, especially with the cost of living. But it is not phones, movies, television, games are not babysitters. You can put them to work. You can do a bunch of other things other than that, because they start learning. The first 7 years, as you know, the first 7 years of a child's life is so impressionable. And I was having a conversation with someone that their little girl stormed out and she pouted, went, and I said, I don't know where she's getting that. I'm like, Disney princess. That is exactly what Disney princess. They're learning how to behave from the moment they're little. And we're going to be moving on to teenagers, because eventually that belief keeps going on. So they storm out, they throw tantrums. We do too. Adults do too, but I'm talking about children. And so then what happens is they start learning at a very early age that kids rule. Watch any movie that's out there. The kid is the one that has the solutions, the answers. The parents are buffoons. If you look at the majority of television out there, look at a good Christian role model on television. It may not sell very well. There's always conflict and drama, and kids are the ones that are raising the children. So what do you have to say about the choices that's feeding our kids' mind, and now they're thinking that they rule, and maybe getting into even deeper problems because now they have the world at their pocket?
Such a great point, and all so true. And so one of the things we talked about earlier is watch what your kids are watching. You watch it with them. If they're going to watch a movie, watch it with them. One of my littles was here not too long ago, and he was playing a game on his phone, which his daddy lets him do. And I got permission and said, okay, this is a game that you said, but it's limited. You have 10 minutes. And 10 minutes? What do you mean 10 minutes? I know, 10 minutes. And so he was playing, and I happened to walk by, and I heard some of the language, or it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad language, but it just was disturbing to me that a 7-year-old was listening and playing and watching.
And that's embedding in their brain. Yeah.
And I picked his phone up, and I picked my phone up, and I said, I don't really feel good about this. What I do it all the time. I watch it all the time. This isn't to throw my kids under the bus, but I said, well, I said, I think a lot of times maybe mommy and daddy have been busy and they don't really know what I was on here because it's not all bad. But this particular one, I'm going to say no on. And he didn't like it, but I don't care. And so I helped him find another one that would be better, and we
Good.
switched it, and all was good. But if I wouldn't have been involved in that hands-on, it goes back to being present. And a lot of times I see the groups I work with, the teenagers I work with, and like you said, parents, listen, I praise anybody who can parent in this generation because it is hard. It is hard. There is so much stress and strain. And I want to say something, and we were going back to the whole getting involved in extracurricular. Kids don't have to be in every activity that's offered. So parents, take some of that pressure off of yourself first. And then say, okay, I'm going to let you be in one activity, and they might not like it. It's okay. Well, we'll switch the activity the next semester or the next year. But this time we're going to pick one. I think one of the things that I'm seeing parents become, because of, like you said, the media, kids think they are going to get to say what they want to do. And parents, we're almost afraid if we upset them, if we hurt their feelings, we're going to damage their self-esteem if we say no. That is a lie. That's just a lie. What we're going to damage their self-esteem from is when we allow our kids at 5, 6, 7 years old to rule the house. And I've seen it happen. And so our kids need boundaries. That is the way our children feel safe, when we draw boundaries around them. Now, I'm not saying be so hard cut core that you don't have a conversation with them about what's working and what's not working and what we can change. But our children, if we want to create healthy environments for our kids, we have got to create healthy boundaries. Now, what does that look like? That goes back to God's word. If they're watching something on the media or on TV that you say, hey, that's not really something I feel peace about, we're not going to watch it. I took my littles to see a movie. It'll go unnamed. It seemed to be very innocent, but part of the movie, it became very obvious that it had very deep cultural meaning to it. I'll just put it that way. And I said, we're out of here. We're going. We're leaving. What? No, we're watching the movie. No, we're not. Because the media knows, and I'm in it. So I know that there's these little messages that were being snuck into our children. There's these little innuendos, if you will. And so that's why I know it's so hard as a parent to be involved in everything they're doing. But I think that we've got to take the time to say, as busy as I am, and I understand I'm so busy and you're so busy, but we've got to take the time to say, you know what, once a week, I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to have a conversation with you. And I'm going to say, hey, let's look at everything that you're playing on the games right now. Let's look at everything that you're watching this week. Tell me about that. And then do a little research. You don't have to watch the whole thing. Do a little research and go to one of the Christian sites that tells you this honest evaluation of movies, of games. There are those out there. And if you need
What's
those.
a good one? What's a good one?
A Focus on the Family is the first one that comes to my mind because I write for them, and they are forever talking about there's a guy on there that does evaluate. What am I trying to say? Movie critics.
Yes.
And there's a guy on there that does that. He does movie critics of different. He's a critic of different movies, and I think he's wonderful, and I think he's spot on. And what I love is the fact that we've got Christians now who are getting involved more and more in making these movies. I think Hollywood is seeing that the Christians are stepping up, and it's fabulous. But we've got to take charge because no one else is going to do this. No one else besides Christian parents. No one else besides parents who are very determined to make sure that their child and their children and their children and their children are getting the foundation that they need. And that's important because we think, well, I've got all this time to teach them. I've got all this time to listen. It goes so fast, as we know, but you're not just, you're impacting generations and generations and generations of kids by your role. You are parents. We have caretakers. If you're a mentor, if you're a teacher, we have it is such a valuable role that we have been given. It's a gift from God that we have been given, that we have the privilege of helping the next generation understand what does it look like to have a solid life in Christ, to even know how to spend money, to know how to make good decisions, to know how to use good judgment when you're driving. There's all different kind of things. Now, we can't go to the Bible and flip to Ephesians and see how to drive. It's not in there, obviously, but we can go to the word, and it talks about how to, be a good steward, and how to Jesus is our rock. He's our safety. So what do? We depend, we might want to have them pray before they drive. There's things that we're not teaching anymore because we think that it's over spiritual. And I just want to say, I've never seen a teenager whose parents prayed with them, whose parents read the Bible with them. I've never seen a parent come back, I should say, and say, I wish I would have done less of that. It just doesn't happen. The teens may not like it. The teens may not listen. The teens may not turn out the way that we planned, but that seed has been planted. And once that seed goes into that soil, I just believe that God continues, as we pray for them, God will continue to churn that up and work in their heart. So it's our privilege, but it's also our command to take care of the next generation.
I love it. I love this conversation because you said so many different things that are so true. Like, parents are afraid to parent. They're afraid they're not being popular, or they're afraid that they're not. And I don't know where all this fear is coming from. I think I do know where the fear is. I think that the world has been, what was it that I was speaking to someone, and it was Brandon Robbins. I don't know if you know him, but he was saying to me that, if you go back in the old days, when with slavery, children were not taught, the Egyptians or the Israelites were not being taught how to be free and think free. It was about, how to survive and not get beaten by, in being, as they were slaves. And that mentality of fear has been handed down and handed down. What is your advice to parents to be bold and be fearless in the name of God?
First thing I want to say to parents about that is be willing to do a little self-evaluation. And we're not always good at that. A lot of times what we want to do is say, well, if this kid would just stop doing this or quit doing that, I'd be a better parent. Whatever the kid's doing, we've got to do some self-evaluation and maybe change some things, whether it's more tough love or whether it's a little easier on them. Sometimes we've got to do some self-evaluation on our parenting skills and say, okay, this isn't working for me. If my child is continuing to do this, what do I do? Now, sometimes our kids are dealing with things that are as parents, we don't know what to do with. Sometimes our kids have health problems. Sometimes our kids have emotional problems, and we need to go seek professional help for that. That's a must. If we need to seek professional help for ourselves to get ourselves in check as far as a parent goes, I've seen that happen as a school counselor. I've had to call CPS more than one time on parents who said, I'm just too overwhelmed. I just can't do this anymore. I don't even know what to do. And this kid won't stop screaming. And it was just awful. Does it excuse it? Absolutely not. But it does give the opportunity for that parent to say, I need to look at myself. Now, with that said, there's a lot of good parents listening to this who are saying, it's just hard. This is hard. I feel like I'm in a battle, and you are in a battle. You're in a battle literally for the souls of your kids. And so I think what we've got to do is we've got to take a step back, do a little self-evaluation, and then have conversation. And one of the frustrating things I know with our teenagers, they get in the car, our little kids, how was your day? Fine. What'd you do? Nothing. That's a typical conversation. And so I think we've got to learn conversation skills and ask open-ended questions so that we can get into their world and we can say, and ask them questions. I know I encourage a lot of the parents of teens that I teach. I say, ask them the tough questions, and they're fun too. Just say, for example, hey, what is one thing that I wear that you think, I don't know if I was a mom, I'd wear that or not. I mean, just, and don't be offended by it if they don't like your yoga pants that you wear every day. It's just their answer. But it's a good conversation starter. And it's a great way to let them know, I see you, because kids need to be seen. I hear you, they need to be heard. But I also want you to know I love you so much that I'm willing to be the parent that I need to be. What is one thing about me as a parent that if you said, if I needed to, work on daily, what is one thing that you would say? And they may be afraid and say, and it's non-judgmental, by the way. We have to ask these questions non-judgmentally. where they feel free and to answer. And we're mature enough as the parents to hear it. And then take that into consideration. They may say something that you think, I'm not changing that, but they may say something that you think, I've never thought about that. Maybe I should. When they see that you're trying to cross that gap with them, they're much more likely to begin to walk toward you as a parent.
I love that. It's so many times where parents shut. I mean, I'm thinking back at when I was a parent. Well, I'm still a parent, but I'm not parenting. And I remember wanting to protect my children so much that, and here is a skill that I have. I know how to solve a problem before the problem evolves. And so I'm a very good problem solver. And so my children didn't have to do a lot of problem solving because everything was just really nice and handed to them. So sometimes we need to get our children to sit. We need to sit back. I mean, I've already apologized to my kids already. One of my children, she's got 3 kids, and 13, 10, and 7. And she was saying, how how proud she is about, how well a job they're doing as parents. And you know what? They are doing a great job as parents. However, this is what I said. Yeah, you find out otherwise when they're in their 20s and 30s that you were a crappy parent. And she laughed because that's the journey of every parent.
Right.
It's a thankless job. And then you find out. And I used to say to my girlfriend who had younger children than me, I said, you know what? At this point, and this was happening at the time, there was a kid that went up on a bell tower and started shooting everybody. And she and I were having breakfast, and I was serious. If when I am taking my last breath and one of my kids haven't been on that bell tower shooting everybody, I think I'm success. That's what we were saying. But the reality is that everybody is in their journey. We're all, even our frustration, even our not being able to handle it, that's God getting our attention, saying, hey, trust me, and I'll help you with this. And
they don't come with instructions. And so it's such a blessing that, me, everybody who's watching this is saying, I'm on my journey, like you said. They don't come with instructions. So parents, don't beat yourself up.
Correct.
Because none of us got it right. None of us got it perfect. There is no such thing. But as we grow, like you said, we learn, and we can look back on things, and yes, we wish we would have done things differently, but we're learning and we're growing. And so taking the advice like you're giving and I'm giving and saying, hey, let me try that. Let me just try it. If it doesn't work for me, it doesn't work. Let me be open.
Very good. Very good. So before we shift to teenagers, because that's where my heart is now. I'm coaching, I'm a certified life coach, and I'm coaching some teenagers, and I'm finding that they're so thirsty for information. They want someone to parent them without having their parent do it. It's like, without admitting, all our children want to be parent. Maybe I'm delusional, but what I'm getting from the young adults that I am, or the teenagers that I'm coaching, is that they're thirsty. And I'm sure that In Her Shoes is very similar to that. So before we continue talking about that, I do want to direct you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, because this is where we take ownership for our life. No more blaming and shaming. Yeah, we think that we're doing a great job as parents, but you will find out that just like you thought your parents did a terrible job, your kids will think you did a terrible job. It's just handed down. It's the curse that gets handed down to you. So I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Please subscribe while you're in the channel or in the website, and like and follow me on all social media. Share this video with your friends, especially if you know that they have young children and they're kind of setting themselves up to fail because they want to be everything to their kids. And sometimes you just can't do that. So share this video, and then also check out my sponsors. Support them the way that they're supporting the classroom. Check out my Shop Now bag. There's discounts, Lily approved products from head to toe. And we also have a couple of workshops, seminars that we're doing. The first one is happening right now. And if you are in it, you know that we're enjoying this journey. It's Super Gut with Dr. William Davis. He is the author of the Wheat Belly series, and we are learning how to restart our microbiome, return our health back, as well as learning to eat certain foods that are less carby and no synthetics and no processed foods. And so I'm really enjoying this journey with Dr. William Davis. So check it out when you go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Also, we have a live seminar with Dr. Bradley Nelson. So for those of you who love Dr. Bradley Nelson, we're going to be doing both the emotion code and body code on November 3rd and 4th of 2023. So if you haven't done so already, take advantage of the early discount for the tickets, because it is an amazing time where you get to tap into your subconscious mind, and you get to deal with and release any past traumas without having to get involved with your conscious mind, which is really, it's a great technique. So check it out if you want to learn more. And last but not least, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom. So whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month, whatever you can donate, it's a one-time or every month, it doesn't matter. A penny is very much appreciated. And whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, it all goes to growing, to helping the classroom grow. So I'm very grateful for your generosity, and I'm thankful to you. Today we have Shannon Perry. She, as you can hear, she is very well versed when it comes to children and life, and knowing that God wants us all to be successful at everything, but we must trust that God will give us everything that we need when we need it. And so today I want to encourage you to go to shannonperry.com and learn more about what she's doing to help the world be a better place. So you had mentioned In Her Shoes, so share a little bit about that.
So In Her Shoes is a tour that we are doing around the country for moms and teen daughters ages 12 to 18. It is a fun day full of fun games, skits, door prizes, breakout sessions, lunch, breakfast. It is not a tea where they come and sit and listen to a speaker. It is very interactive. It is very fun. There's life-changing 3 different sessions with life-changing topics and all of the things that teenagers are facing. But the most incredible thing that happens in those days and that we have seen is that moms and daughters at the end, I had them face each other and talk to each other and ask each other, answer each other with some questions that I've asked. And it's incredible to watch the walls come down during the day. You know, the morning of, they come in and they kind of, you know, crossed off. Some of them don't talk to each other. Some of them have great relationships. There's parents who have wonderful relationships with their girls, and then there's some that hadn't talked to them. We did a conference in Memphis, and the morning I was starting the conference, I saw a mom who was on the front row by herself. And so I walked down off the stage right before I started speaking. And I said, "Hi, you know, good morning. Where's your daughter?" And she said, "I have not seen my daughter in 2 weeks." But she said, "I saw you on ABC yesterday here in Memphis talking about today, and I wanted to come and learn." She said she ran away, and I texted her and asked her to come to this conference and meet me. I don't know if she will. Right before I started speaking at the first session, that young lady came through the back doors and sat down by her mom. Now, she was not happy to be there. She had her arms crossed. But she was there. Throughout the day, as I began to speak and I began to have them talk to each other, and we did the games and they had lunch. And by the end of the session, not only was that mom and that daughter, were they embracing and crying and hugging, but that young lady gave her life to Christ at the end of our event. We have seen so many moms and daughters, relationships restored and give their lives to Jesus. And it's such a day of healing. You talk about healing. It's such a day of healing. It's such a day of growth for moms and daughters who already had those really good relationships. There's a lot of laughter. We play a lot of games. If you go to our website, inhershoestour.com, you can see where we're going to be. We're adding 20 dates to that calendar coming up for 2024. So if we're in your area, would love to see you at one if you have a daughter. But I've also written a couple of books for that tour. One is called The Overlooked Generation. That's the book I wrote for parents. And then I also wrote one called Stand. And that was actually written by teen girls for teen girls. I just happened to get to pen it. I met with girls in my home during the summertime, and and basically just let them answer the questions I asked. And then I wrote the book, and it won a reader's favorite award. So the girls are really loving it, really reading it. And there's a lot of girls who don't like to read, but they've told me I really like this book because it's written in their language. And so you can purchase those at shannonperry.com. But the main thing is, we are going to be doing this tour, and the way that this happened, just so I can share the story of what amazing things God is doing in this tour. A year ago, I lost my dad. I'm an only child. I lost my mom to cancer 6 years ago, and my mom and I my mom was my best friend. She worked for me. She traveled with me. When I lost her, it was just a huge loss. And so I had done a couple of these events before, but I just kind of said, and I'm kind of done with that now that mom's not here. Well, a year ago, the Lord laid it on my heart. I want you to do a tour of this event. It is needed. And I thought, I am too old. Get somebody who's like in their 20s to do this, Lord. And so anyway, I just started praying about it, and I said, okay, I couldn't sleep at night. And when God wants us to do something, he's gently reminds us over and over. And so I woke up in the middle of the night. Finally, I said, okay, Lord, look, if you want me to do this, I'll do it. But we're going to need something to travel in. This is going to take a team of people. It's a big production. We have a huge backdrop that's set up on the stage. It's a big deal. And so I called one of my friends who owned an RV company, and I just said, how much would it cost me just to rent an RV? And she said, oh, we have better than that. She said, we have an old Prevost, like an old tour bus that's being fixed up. Why don't you help us choose the paint color for it? And I said, huh? And so not only did she send me the paint colors to choose from, I picked the color I liked. And then about 2 weeks later, they said, hey, meet us at a restaurant. And I pulled in, and the bus was parked in the back with that new paint job on it. And they said, well, call us when you get here. So I called them, and I said, hey, oh my gosh, you got the bus painted? And they said, well, not exactly. They said, we knew that you loved that bus so much. And a tour bus, I know a lot of people think I'm crazy, but one of my dreams has been to ride on a tour bus and tell people about Jesus around the country. A lot of people think I think there's no way they would like to do it. I love it. And so they said, well, not exactly. We didn't buy that. We didn't paint the bus. We knew how much you loved that bus that we were looking at. So we just flew to Atlanta, and we bought that bus, and it was Casting Crowns tour bus. And they opened the doors, and they said, welcome home. So God provided the bus for us for this tour. And then a couple of weeks later, I thought, okay, we have a bus, because when we don't really want to do something the Lord's telling us to do, we can find all kind of reasons that we're not going to do it. Sure. And so I said, okay, I've got the bus, but how are we going to get there? We don't have any fuel. About 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from somebody that said, my husband and I, he's really, the Lord's laid us on our heart, and we'd like to buy your fuel for the first year for your bus. Okay, I'm not getting out of this, am I, God? So, right. And so that is how this whole thing started, and it has just grown. And we've just gotten another sponsor for the tour, and we're so excited about doing it. And just like I said, we're adding dates right now, and we're looking for places to host it. So if you're listening and you have a church that would be interested, we would love to talk to you about that. But we are just, the things that God is doing in this generation. We just are so privileged to be a part of being the hands and feet of touching these moms and daughters in person. I also coach. I also have a coaching program that I do for teen girls and moms. But I love the fact that it's such a need that we are just all trying to guide this generation home and guide this generation of parents home. And so what a beautiful opportunity it is to be able to go out and to do this tour again, using my experience as a crisis, coach. I have a certification in crisis counseling, and in parenting. I've taught parenting classes, and all of these things that God has lined up along the way, where I used to think, I don't know how you're going to use all this stuff, how God was ordaining my steps. And I say that not to put the focus on me, but to put the focus and praise on Him, and to remind listeners, when we can't see how the pieces are fitting together, God is doing something extraordinary, that we just haven't seen it yet.
Wonderful. It sounds wonderful. I think that you should add to your lineup. This is just my perspective, the grandparents with their grandchildren too, because grandparents we want to have a relationship with our grandchildren, especially our granddaughters and grandsons, or so maybe you can have a multi-generation, like a grandmother, the mom.
We do.
Oh, you
Yeah, we
do?
actually do. We do have that. We invite anyone who is raising a teen, anyone who has a relationship with a teen or working with a teen.
Good.
So
Okay.
we invite parent moms of teens. Thank you for us mentioning that. We invite moms of teens. We also invite grandparents of teens. We invite. I've had girls who have come with their youth directors when their moms weren't available to come or they weren't involved in their life. Anyone who's working with a teen girl closely or who has a relationship with a teen girl closely and would like to attend, they are welcome to attend.
Perfect. Perfect. I hope you're going to be coming to Florida. I hope you have a church in Florida.
We're actually working on that. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. But just keep
We'd
me
love for you to
posted.
come.
Keep me posted. Yes.
Sure will.
Okay. So let's, because we have about, five or so minutes, 7 minutes left. I want to really focus on our teenagers and conversations, difficult conversations. How do you know that a child's being bullied? How do you know they're not, being, hurt by another girl or another guy? How do you get involved when they're saying, nope, nothing's wrong. Nope, nothing's wrong.
Great question. Having difficult conversations and the fact that they won't talk to us is really hard for us as parents. I remember when I was growing up, I had a teacher that I would talk to about everything, but I wouldn't always tell my mom. And I think a lot of the girls have said to me, I was afraid to tell my mom because I didn't want her to see me differently. I didn't want her to judge me. I didn't want her to think something about me that's not necessarily true. And so one of the things I remember my mom saying that I want to pass along is sometimes God uses us in our teens' lives to have those difficult conversations or be told about those difficult things. Sometimes He places other people in their lives that they feel like they can go to, and they have those conversations. But then they can always come back to us as parents so that we're aware and we can begin to open those doors. So parents, don't be alarmed if you find out something's going on and you hear it through the youth director or you hear it through a teacher or you hear it through a counselor. It isn't that they don't love you or care about you or trust you even. It's that they're afraid that your relationship might be tarnished if something has happened. Now, we know that's not true. We know we want our kids to come to us. So one of the things that we can do to keep that line of communication open is asking those open-ended questions and always letting your teen know, hey, no matter what, I am going to do my best to not judge you. I've gone through things in my life. Now, that doesn't mean I expect that you will do those same things, repeat those same patterns, but I want to build that trust with you. So what is a way we can do that? And have that open-ended conversation. Ask them open-ended questions and remind them too, I want to, my goal is to have an open time where you can come to me and tell me anything. But if you ever feel like you just are a little afraid or a little timid, we don't want our kids to shut down, keep it inside, because that's when we start to see suicide rise. That's when we start to see self-harm rise. We can't be so prideful as parents or so put our ego out there to think, well, if you don't talk to me, then you go talk to this other person. I'm upset. Be grateful that God has put someone in their life to expose those things to, so that they can come to you as a parent and say, hey, this is going on. And, and another thing I want to remind parents of too, a lot of times our kids won't tell us anything. Like if they go to a party and they're uncomfortable because there's something going on there they don't like, they don't want to call us because then they think, oh, they're going to tell my friend's mom, or they're going to say, have a code with your child, with your teenager. And I mean, if they text you the word, I don't know, pink, then that means come pick me up. And when you go get them, that means I'm not going to ask you any questions right now. I'm not going to, judge. I'm not going to ask what happened. I'm going to say, hey, thanks so much for calling me. We'll talk about this later. I'm just so glad you're safe, and let it go, because our kids shut us out when they feel like we're going to just, hammer them for information, or we're going to invade their space. So give them a little bit of space to talk about it, but always remind your teen, no matter what, you will never lose my love, and I am here for you.
Absolutely. That is the number one thing that all our children need to know, which is that nothing, I mean, nothing can keep us away from loving our children. We may not like what they did, and we have every right to say, I don't like what you've done, but it doesn't
set those boundaries.
Yeah,
and get consequences for that. Yes.
consequences are so important. And children don't know consequences. There's a lot of kids today that don't know the consequences until it's too late. It's too late. And so those difficult conversations with our teenagers, whether we think that they're being mouthy or not, or they've got a lesson to learn, or whatever it is, I would say, we need to pray for wisdom to communicate with them so that they can hear us. And so asking, I love those questions that you said, that, how, if you were a parent, or if you would like to say, if I wear something, or if there was something that I could change in, what would it be? I love those conversations, because we as parents or grandparents or friends or whatever, we need to be open that we may not be seeing what we're doing either. So I love that, having that conversation and be humble about it. So I'm so grateful for this. Any last words before we go? We got about a minute left.
I do. They can go to either of my social media places, Shannon Perry Ministries. And we have a radio show right now that I'm also posting in video form on Shannon Perry Ministries on Instagram and Facebook. And it is called Got Teens. And every other day we post a question that parents of teens are asking. So I encourage you to go check that out and follow that podcast, so that if you have a question that might come up, you might hear the answer to the question that you have. There's a lot of great questions on there, and we try to give very good but solid scriptural answers as well to help parents on this journey. So please check that out on Shannon Perry Ministries.
Yes. So it's Shannon Perry Ministries. So you have Shannon Perry Ministries, you have ShannonPerry.com. Can it all be accessed through ShannonPerry.com?
If you go to ShannonPerry.com,
I'm sorry,
Shannon. It can go, that's okay. You get the share and the Perry get. You can go to ShannonPerry.com and you can find it all there.
Okay, perfect. So if you're not getting all this really quickly, just know that you can go there and click on and find your way through. Thank you so much, Shannon. This has been a wonderful conversation. I hope it's not our last, and that we will continue to grow together, learning more from each other. So thank you so much.
I'd love that too. Thanks so much for having me on and for all you do. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Shannon Perry wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. That's a great Texan ever.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert